Many people can agree with me that they had a few bad moments in their childhood that they wish to forget. Unfortunately, it's these things that are so easily burned into memory. Have you ever had a time in your life when you would try to remember the good things from the past, but only to remember something embarrassing or shameful? Sometimes people go for years without even trying to think any of it. That is until they find something which triggers the particular memory that they never wanted it to come back to. And it's the feelings of nausea and paranoia. That is what is happening to me. On this particular day, it was raining. You could walk down the rest of the street to see pedestrians taking shelter under bus stops or in big coats, holding an umbrella. I myself was holding onto one, frustrated by countless strong winds blowing it back. I was strolling down the marketplace, looking for some cheap groceries. I wanted to get home quickly since the weather wasn't the best. As I was bagging some goods, I turned my head to see a table covered with old stuff. After taking a closer look, I could see the box that had filled with VHS tapes lined up on the sides. Most of them were rather old children's shows such as Bob the Builder and Thomas and Friends. None of them looked pirated, and to be honest, one video case I saw had the Teletubbies logo on it. I know I'm too old to be interested, but for some strange reason, I had the urge to buy it. I picked up the case to look at it, and what I saw made me jump slightly. I saw the image of the bear. As previously mentioned, some things really bring back bad memories almost instantly. As soon as I saw the bear, so many things had gone in my mind, horrible things, that I just couldn't get myself to say. These thoughts made me really shaky and nauseated. Despite my feelings, I gave the cashier his money and put it in a bag along with my other things. When I looked back up at the cashier, just smiled at me and said, not a have a nice day sort of smile, but more of that I'm glad you bought it smile. I didn't smile back. I just walked away, trying to get into my car as I drove home. All the while I could think about was that bear. I could go on more than one thought that just ended up thinking of it again. Each time I bring that all of a sudden feeling of fear. When I got home around 6 p.m., I put the tape onto the side while I sorted out my food. Once I was finished, I knew what was the only thing I could do was to watch the tape. After setting up my old VHS recorder, I stood and stared at the tape again. This time, I noticed the features that I had previously gave no pay attention to. There were no company logos or symbols on the case, and no information on the back. I opened up the case to see that the tape had nothing but the word SeeSaw written on it in black marker. I rushed in to put the tape in, hoping to get it over and done with. I saw that the tape was almost halfway through, so I rewound it to the beginning. When it was done, I pressed play to see if anything, but it was nothing but black. I fast forwarded onto the tape until I saw the same place before I rewind it. Strangely, it was right before the images actually appeared on screen. I grabbed my chair from my kitchen and placed it in front of the television. I sat down and pressed play on the button. It was certainly the opening for Teletubbies had begun, and the theme music was playing quietly. The music was filled with static noise and high-frequency buzzing. I noticed that it must have been cut. Skipping to the Sun Baby logo, I couldn't help but notice that the image had horrible quality, as appeared to be if the tape was decades old. The image was shaky and had a layer of static, constantly fuzzed. The color also seemed to be bland and gray, as the Teletubbies ran down the hill. The footage suddenly cut to them staring at the camera, then it cut again to a view of the empty, small-hilled fields. When the music stopped suddenly, an image of a seesaw flashed on screen, with a boy on each side, shoving it, moving it up and down. The field then came back into view, and the only thing I can hear now was buzzing. A small figure appeared in the distance in the field. The buzzing noise became louder, and the seesaw image flashed on the screen again. The buzzing momentarily silences, as the echoey voice of an elderly woman can be heard slowly getting louder. The image flashed again, and the screen slowly zoomed into a distant object as the buzzing noises came back. The woman's voice slowly echoed, "I'm coming, I'm coming," in a high-pitched screech that was audible slowly as it zoomed. A bear's face then flashed on the screen. Things started to get tense. At this point, I was too frightened to turn the volume down. I'm coming to get you. I looked behind me and quickly took a look back. The screaming became louder, and more static could be heard. Random images of children flashed on the screens every few seconds, as the camera finally zoomed in until the figure filled the screen. I am the bear, and I'm coming. The horrific sound of children crying could be heard. The camera then began to zoom in on the bear's face as the SeeSaw flashed on the screen again. I'm coming to get you. The image then flashed on the screen once more. The SeeSaw had stopped, and the boys were now just staring blankly at each other. The camera had finally zoomed into a full view of the bear's face. Its mouth moved up and down as it echoed, I'm coming to get you, and I will get you. The bear's eyes then began to spin around as the image flashed on the screen. The SeeSaw appeared, but with gore and blood all around it. It was surrounded by what appeared to be human remains. The dead bodies of two young boys appeared out of nowhere and caused the SeeSaw to move slowly up and down. They were just laying there, their clothes soaked in blood. The sound finally stopped, and I just sat and stared at this image for a minute before it went to black. Needless to say, after that minute had passed, I immediately grabbed the tape right out of the machine and threw it in the bin, along with the case. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about what I saw. I had to frequently check my windows. This couldn't have lasted all night, as when I sat down to try and calm myself down, I must have finally fell asleep. The next morning, I had work that I needed to finish on my laptop. As I was checking my emails, I stared at my desktop background. It was a photo of me and my friend in the field, and I saw a small figure on it that I don't remember being there before. I found the original image in my files and zoomed in on it. It was the bear. Well, my pretties, that was SeeSaw. A Teletubbies Lost episode creepypasta. My final thoughts on this story? Well, this story was, there is a few good things I have to say about it, but most of them were pretty much negative. Just like with the playground one, this is actually one of the few, good Teletubbies creepypastas that managed to do something pretty good. But in all due reality, this story kind of sucked, but at the same time, it wasn't really the best. Now, I can definitely say this one was an okay story, although the issues I do have with it is, the cliches, the blood everywhere about the kids dying in the SeeSaw and all, and the tape getting destroyed later and all. It's just all the cliches that were included in this story. It honestly just didn't make the story good. And I guess that's one of the only downfalls I have. The grammar of this story was pretty good, though. I definitely gotta say, the grammar of this story was pretty good. Although the story could have been better without the cliches added in it or something like that. Now, this is actually, it did have potential to be somewhat good. This could have been an awesome story, but like I said, this is an older story. So I can definitely say it must have been a very older story, so maybe that could be why. But I do know a couple narrators actually narrated this one. And the story, in my personal opinion, was not the greatest one. Just like with the playground, it was an okay story, but this one just wasn't really my cup of tea. But I thought, I'll give it a review and a read just to leave out my personal thoughts and opinions on this. This story could have been somewhat good, which it did have some potential, but it just didn't really work out pretty great, especially with the cliches and that were listed. It's really hard to come up with a lost episode good creepypasta of it. It's really hard to do that without adding cliches in that. So this is actually why a lot of the times, you would see creepypastas, sounding the exact same. Because it seems to me that everybody's trying to, come up with a story, but it's just they can't come up with a decent plot line, so they ended up deciding to, come up with a really crappy, storyline. I mean, I'm not saying everybody makes shit stories, but I mean, everyone does every now and then, but we learn and all that. Now, the sentence structuring and the grammar was good for most of it. However, there might have been maybe a grammatical error or two in this story. I'm not really sure when this was made, but I do know it might have been made a few years ago, which, I mean, it's a couple years old, maybe 2018 or something. I could definitely give the author credit for credit is due. At least they tried to come up with something a bit new. But it just didn't really work out with the cliches, in my personal opinion. I mean, I could see some of it somewhat work, but at the same time, a lot of Lost episodes have done this so many times, and a lot of people have done, creepypasta cliches so many times in their older stories. So it's kind of obvious that, I'll give the author credit that they did try their best. Now, to the author of this story, I can't seem to find out who you are, so if you can let me know who you are in the comments. If you happen to come across the video, let me know who you are. So then that way I can make sure to give you proper credit in the description and etc. So, yeah, I mean, the story was not great. I mean, it's not my cup of tea, but it's an okay story. So, some good things I'm going to definitely say is that the author did try their best, and it's kind of pretty much based on somewhat of the Lion and Bear episode, which I haven't really watched Teletubbies in a long time. I don't watch it anymore, obviously, because I got older, but yeah, my brother was obsessed with Teletubbies when he was a kid, so that was one of the shows I did watch with him. So with that being the case and that being said, this is just simply my own personal opinion, and if you happen to disagree with me, that's perfectly fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these creepypastas, and this is just simply my own personal thoughts. I'm going to give this story a 4 out of 10. A 4 out of 10 because, while I can say that the author did try their best to make this a good creepypasta of Teletubbies, but the cliches of it just turned out to be very cliched. The whole story was just cliched, and I mean, I will give credit that the author did try their best to make it, somewhat original in that, but the cliches that just were thrown in there, I mean, it's been used and done to death a lot, so that's actually one of those reasons. But it's also because a lot of the time, creepypastas are just sounding the exact same. And, I mean, I will give the benefit of the doubt that it's kind of hard to make a good Lost episode pasta. The grammar was good and all. I was able to read this no problem. It did have somewhat of an interesting concept, but at the same time, it kind of really doesn't explain why things went from 1 to 100 pretty quickly with it all. It's just a cliched storyline, but I could definitely say the author did try their best. And if the author has improved on, writing stories like these or something, then I would like to know if the author did improve over time. But I mean, I say it right here, not really my cup of tea story. I mean, because it was cliched and all, but I will give it credit that it's one of the fewer Teletubby episodes that managed to somewhat try to come up with something decent or new. So, yeah, I mean, it's not the best story out there, but it's definitely not a bad one. So, yeah, there's definitely that. So, with that being said, and that being the case, what did you guys personally think of this creepypasta? Did you all enjoy it? Did you all not? Also, what you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm the Lion Queen. I want to thank you so much for watching today's episode. If you're brand new here to this channel, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Ring the bell for notifications to when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro, because I'm out.